This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. Standing in the Rose Garden outside the Oval Office, Donald Trump, beleaguered after days of criticism against his coronavirus strategy, said the US is a victim of the World Health Organization's mismanagement and accused it of a cover-up.
The reality is that the WHO failed to adequately obtain, vet, and share information in a timely and transparent fashion. Had the WHO done its job to get medical experts into China to objectively assess the situation on the ground and to call out China's lack of transparency, the outbreak could have been contained at its source with very little death, and certainly very little death by comparison.
He suspended the US's contribution to the organization's funding pending a review. An estimated $400 million was given last year. Our US correspondent David Gardner is with me over the phone. And David, what's he up to?
Donald Trump is saying that he's planning to halt funding to the World Health Organization, saying it's failed in its basic duty in dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. He's pointing the finger at the WHO, saying that it should have acted faster in containing the outbreak and preventing travel to and from China. As usual, he's saying that he did it right, and that he, at an early stage, at the end of January, stopped travel to China and from China, from America. And he's saying that the WHO should be held accountable.
Is this a surprise, though, David?
It's not the first time, of course, that Mr. Trump has criticised the WHO. He did the same thing last week. And it's not the first time that he's criticised international organisations like the WHO. He's been a critic of the UN and other treaties where he says America pays far more than other countries and accused other nations of not pulling their weight and leaving it all up to America. He's doing the same here. Indeed, America does provide between $400 and $500 million a year to the WHO, which is, by far the biggest amount of any country. UK, incidentally, is the second largest contributor. Mr. Trump complains that China only contributes about $40 million, although I think it's a little bit more than that. It's more than about 76, 78 million.
Donald Trump himself is clearly under some pressure. You only had to look at the press conference the other day where he claimed he had total authority, and even some Republicans recoiled at that phrase. Is he using the World Health Organization to distract from controversies within the White House?
Again, classic Donald Trump, really. He has been criticised himself in acting too slowly to stop the spread of the virus. And at one time, indeed, he was supportive of China's handling of the problem, and he himself tried to play it down. History has shown that he was wrong, but Mr. Trump is not one to admit any kind of failure. This is being seen in some quarters as an attempt to deflect the criticism that he has received in acting too slowly, and by pointing a finger at somebody else, maybe prevent some people from pointing the finger at him.
But how successful can he be at getting people to stop pointing fingers at him when he's making big dramatic statements like pulling out of the World Health Organization during a pandemic, David? I mean, perhaps at home, but internationally, what's the reaction been?
The reaction from the UN, unsurprisingly, is not good. The UN saying it's not the time to cut funds to the WHO, which, at the time of a worldwide pandemic, they certainly have a case. High-profile figures like Bill Gates have also been critical of Mr. Trump's comments. The second largest funder, indeed, to the WHO is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Mr. Gates said that halting funding to the WHO during a world health crisis is as dangerous as it sounds. Whether Mr. Trump goes ahead in halting the funding is yet to be seen. He says they're going to stop funding while a review is carried out. But again, it's Trump doing what he does and pointing fingers at a time when many fingers are being pointed at himself.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.